All right. Again, I'd like to welcome everybody to our small business procurement presentation. This is all about contracting with the government. And today on our presentation, we have a guest speaker. But before we get there, we want to talk a little bit about what a business plan involves, because this is all part of our small business series, Starting Your Own Business. And we've got on the left-hand side of the screen a business plan. These are the different components of what you need to have be able to make your business function and flow properly. Other essentials that we are discussing in some of our webinars include the items that are on the right-hand side of the list. And one of the things that we weren't quite sure about is small business procurement actually falls under marketing and sales. Who are you going to be selling your product to? And if it includes the federal or state government where you are, that could be part of your process and the information that you need to know to make sure that things move smoothly in your marketing and sales of your product and service. So today, to help us through this discussion, is our guest speaker, Mary Turner. She is with the Illinois PTAC of Central Illinois. And Mary is a Level 3 Certified Contracting Specialist through the Association of Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, which is APTEC, and holds a Level 1 Federal Contracting Certificate. Mary has been with the PTAC program since November of 2004. So that means Mary has a lot of information that she's ready and willing to share with all of us and our audience about procurement with the federal and state government. So Mary, would you like to say a couple of words to our audience before we get going with our presentation?
Thank you, Dee. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and the audience today about selling to the federal and state government. Now, this is going to be an overview of very high-level introduction to the market. So, as you said, it should fit in nicely with whether you decide that you want to sell to the federal or state or local governments at all. So I appreciate the opportunity, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate your time and energy when it comes to giving our Illinois residents a little bit more information about how they can make their businesses better. Let's start with our presentation right now. We're going to talk about a few things. Our objectives are to learn some, and I'm sure that there are multitudes of basics that we need to know, and so Mary's going to just cover the high points, as she said. We're going to talk a little bit about registrations and a little bit more about certifications. So why don't we get rolling right now with selling to the government?
Very good. Thank you so much. Now on our first slide, you'll see this little guy, he is buried under loads and loads of paperwork. That's what most people probably think of when they think of selling to the government. And, you know, part of that is right. There is a lot more red tape that goes into selling to the government. There's a lot more time commitment, but there also can be some very good rewards. Now, also in this presentation this morning, I will give you some resources. Actually, the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers were created to help small businesses or persons like yourself that want to sell to the government. So let's move into the government itself is a huge market. You think about it, they buy everything. They buy everything from a pencil, a piece of paper, to rocket systems and ammo and weapons. So they spend billions. And today's presentation is going to help you decide whether you want a little bit of a piece of that. So we'll move on to the next slide. Basically, the government's objectives of what they want to buy is much like the commercial market. They want a quality product or service that's delivered on time, and they want at a competitive cost. So really, you know, selling to the government, other than the paperwork, you know, part of those objectives are the same that you're going to meet with your commercial clients. Now, we're first going to talk about the federal government, and I do want to make note here that there are differences in selling to the federal government versus the state government. So when we talk about the federal government, as I said, they spend billions. It's estimated that last year they spent $500 billion. Now, within that market share, the small businesses are taken in consideration. The government does have preference goals that they want to see met. And the Small Business Administration, or the SBA, overlooks these goals, and they make sure that the government is meeting the expectations or trying to meet the expectations. So as you will see, there is a small business goal for 23%, the small disadvantaged business goal for 7%, women-owned small business goals 5%, HubZone 5%, and service-disabled veteran-owned business goal at 3%. Now, you'll also notice on this slide that there are lots and lots of acronyms, and that's part of selling to the government. You just have to get used to it. Once you are familiar with the acronyms, it will just become second nature to you. So as I mentioned, there are preference goals that have been established, and as I said, these are goals, and the agencies do need to do their due diligence to meet these goals. Let's talk briefly about the purchasing thresholds. Now, if I owned an office supply store, let's say, and I had someone from the USDA office walk into my store, if they had a P card or a purchasing card, procurement card, they could just buy anything that they wanted off the shelf. I wouldn't have to register to be a federal vendor. All I'd have to do is accept a credit card, and typically the credit cards the government uses are Visa and MasterCard. So that's the micro purchase, what we call, under $3,000. The second stage is the simplified acquisition, and that is the dollar amount between $3,000 and $150,000. These acquisitions are set aside specifically for small businesses. You will not see any large businesses compete for these contracts. So above $150,000, we have the large dollar purchases. This would be companies like Boeing, Lockheed Martin, IBM. These are the big guys, and there is a lot more paperwork involved with these types of purchases. So as a small business, yes, you will need to get involved in the registrations and responding to the request for proposals, but they're not going to be nearly as elaborate as the large dollar purchases. Today, when selling to the government, you need to be internet savvy. And on the federal government side, any opportunity that is valued $25,000 and above has to be, it's mandated, it must be posted on a website called FedBizOps. As you see, there is the web address for FedBizOps. Now, it's mandatory that they are posted, as I said, and they must be posted for at least 3 days. So that's where you're going to see all of the opportunities. And at this point, I also might say that the federal government also can post what is called a source of sought, which is basically they're looking for small businesses or preference businesses to respond to a specific project. So we won't go into a lot of that, but just to let you know that there are some source of sought opportunities that you can watch along the way and get involved in the process before the actual request for proposal comes out. Now you might say, yes.
Mary, what I'd like to tell everybody is that all of these links are in a pod at the end of our presentation so that you can click on those, and then in the handout, all of the links are posted in the handout as well. So if you want to follow up and check on any of these links down the road, you'll have two opportunities to do that.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Now, you might say, okay, I get it. Any opportunity over $25,000, I can go to FedBizOps. But what about those lower dollar amounts of, for the projects under 25,000? Well, anything under 25,000, you will need to go to the agency website itself. So I've got a link to the different agencies that are out there. And I also might want to say that there are websites out there that can tell you what agencies purchased your product or service the most. So you won't have to guess about who buys your products or services. Let's talk about registration itself. As I mentioned, if you sell anything to the government over $3,000, you'll need to register as a vendor. So in order to start, you will need to know what your North American Industrial Classification codes are. Now, these are codes that basically describe what product you sell or what service you provide. Now, you can have multiple NAICS codes. You don't have to stick with just one. You can have multiple. Now, you will need this NAICS code when you register to be a vendor, and then, as we'll talk about this later, it will also come into play when you designate or when you determine whether you're a large or a small business by the SBA standards. And another code on here, the SIC codes or the Standard Industrial Classification codes, these are not used as much nowadays as they were in the past, but when you register for your DUNS number, I believe they still ask for the SIC codes. In addition to those codes, we also have product service codes. And you'll know these by the lettering system. They're numbered lettered A through Z, and these are codes for the Federal Procurement Data System. If you sell a supply, you will use the Federal Supply Classification numbers. As you will see, these the link to this table is represented below. Now, the Federal Supply Classification codes are also used in the numbering of that part or product that is being sold to the federal government. Another thing that you'll need for your federal vendor registration is a tax identification number, or you can use your Social Security number if you're a sole proprietor, but if I were you, I would go ahead and I would get that tax identification number, or it's also called a federal employer identification number, or I've also seen it just called an employer identification number. So it could be TIN, FEIN, or EIN that we're talking about, but we're talking about the same thing.
Right. And Mary, we had a whole presentation that talked about how to obtain
Great.
All of those numbers when you're starting your business.
Perfect. We will move onward. All right, the DUNS number. This is very important when registering as a federal vendor. You will either contact Dun & Bradstreet at this number, or you can go online and get the number. Now, I want to stress, I am going to stress this till I'm blue in the face. There is no charge for the DUNS number. Now, if you call the 866 number, you need to indicate that this number is for a federal contract. But let it be known that you are not to be charged for this number. So do keep that in mind. Now, everything that I've told you is necessary for the SAM registration, and the SAM registration stands for System for Award Management. Here again, do not let anyone charge you for this registration. There is no cost to register. So, but I will warn you, there are companies out there that want you to pay for them to sign you up. So just know that you don't have to pay that. We have Procurement Technical Assistance Centers out there that can help you with this registration, and I'll give you more information about our program at the end. So when you're registering in SAM, you will also want to make sure that you complete a section called the Dynamic Small Business Search, or DSBS. This is actually a separate database that the SBA has that you will go into this separate database and you can fill out such things as keywords, a capability narrative, which is basically an elevator speech that gives in a few words what your business does or what you sell. It is very important to fill out this section because contracting officers or large prime contractors who want to work with small businesses will need to find you. So this is an excellent way for you to be found on that website. During the process of SAM registration, you will also be assigned a CAGE code, or Commercial and Government Entity Code. It's a 5-digit code. It's either letters and numbers or just all letters, numbers, but it is 5 digits. And some large prime contractors do require you to have a CAGE code. And let me go into large prime contractors. Oftentimes, if they have a service contract $650,000 and above, or if it's a construction contract $1.5 million and above, they have to come up with a subcontracting plan. So that means these large prime contractors are going to be looking for small businesses such as yourself. So that's why you can be attractive to them. Let's go into certifications on a federal level. As
Mary,
I mentioned,
I've got a question before you move on.
Yes.
Do all of these things, are they only applicable to businesses within the United States, or if somebody has a business outside of the country, do they have to go through a different process that we're not going to necessarily address today?
That's a good question. Foreign companies can register in SAM as a foreign entity. So it does not just entail the United States small businesses. Let's say if you were in Germany and you wanted to sell to the government, you would register in SAM. Mm-hmm. That's a good question. Yep.
And just because you're registered on SAM doesn't mean that you've gone through all of the steps. There's many more steps.
Yeah, that's just vendor registration. If you want to win a contract, you have to fill out the paperwork, request for proposal, invitation for bid. So there's a lot more that goes on beyond these initial steps.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Now, let's look at how do I determine if I'm a small business. In the beginning, I mentioned the NAICS codes, the North American Industrial Classification Code. Now, you will need to use that number and reference it to the SBA's size standards table. That table is going to tell you whether you fall in the framework of a large business or a small business. Typically, this is either by revenues, your average annual receipts, or by employees. Typically, manufacturing goes by employees. That can be 500 employees or under. You'd be a small business. So the revenues are actually fairly high. I think the lowest revenue that I've seen is like $7 million. So if you bring in under $7 million, you could be a small business if that was underneath your NAICS code. And we'll talk about this with the state government. That's different from the federal versus the state, and this whole process is different. So moving onward, let's talk just briefly about certifications. The SBA, the Small Business Administration, has an 8A business development program. That is for the socially and economically disadvantaged businesses. This is a 9-year program. It is very intense, entailed, but during the whole process, the SBA is to help you increase your commercial lines business and bring in hopefully government contracting. Now, with this 8A program, as I said, it's for the socially and economically disadvantaged. So your owner would have to be at least 51% of either minority or it could be a female that is in a male-dominated industry. The Hub Zone program is a program that basically looks at where your business is located. If it's located in an area that experiences high unemployment, low average incomes, you could be in a Hub Zone program, and the SBA has a map that shows immediately, if you type in your address, it's going to tell you whether your business is located in a Hub Zone. Now, besides the business being located in a Hub Zone, 35% of the employees must also live in a Hub Zone. So that's one of the prerequisites. The SBA has recently started a woman-owned small business program, and this program is a bit different because in order to be in this program, your NAICS code, and here we go back to that NAICS code again, it has to fall under the 83 different specific codes. So if your code falls within that category, you can be certified in the women-owned small business. I'm going to speak briefly about self-certifications in SAM. Now, as I mentioned, in the women-owned small business program, if you want to be in the SBA's managed program, then you have to be in one of the specific NAICS codes. If you don't fall under that, you can self-certify in SAM, which just basically means when it says woman-owned small business, you check the box. That's all it is. If you're a minority-owned, you can check the disadvantaged small business box. Or if you're a veteran or a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, just check the box. So it is that easy just to self-certify in SAM. Now, the veterans, and I apologize, I tried to write out all of the acronyms, but I forgot this one. CVE stands for Center for Veteran Enterprises. And if you are selling products or services to the Department of Veteran Affairs, you will need to verify your business through the Center for Veteran Enterprises. So currently the VA is the only department requiring that. Just briefly, we're going to talk about state procurement. As I said, the process that you go through for registering with the federal government is different than working with the state. Now, under the state procurement, in the last couple of years, the state of Illinois has gone away from a paper copy registration into an online vendor registration. As you will see, the website is posted, ipg.vendorreg.com, and the .com kind of threw me off when it first came to be. Typically, I'm used to looking at .gov or .mil, but the state of Illinois now has an online vendor registration. So if you want to sell to Central Management Services, this is where you would register. Now, the state of Illinois also has a program for small businesses. It's called the Small Business Set-Aside Program. And you apply for that within the IPG application. It's kind of like on the federal level, we had the Dynamic Small Business Search, which was within the SAM registration. So this is a small business set-aside program for strictly Illinois businesses. No Missouri business or Iowa business can be in this program. You have to be an Illinois-based program. Now, if you're interested in seeing what opportunities the state of Illinois has, you will want to sign up for the Illinois Procurement Bulletin. And you will put in the codes, and here again, These codes are different than the federal codes. So once an opportunity, the state will see if you're registered for, let's say, office supplies again, if the state has any opportunities that you would fit, then those would be emailed directly to you. Within the state of Illinois, we also have 9 state universities, and if you would like to sell to the universities, you can go online and you can register to sell to the universities. Besides the universities, we have the Illinois Department of Transportation, or IDOT. They do the road work, construction work. The Capital Development Board, the CDB, they are responsible for the brick and mortar work within the state, such as your junior colleges, your elementary schools here in Illinois. So these are just several opportunities that you can register to sell with through the state of Illinois. As I mentioned before, the size standards are different from the federal government to the state government. So here in Illinois, if you're an Illinois-based business and you're a wholesaler and your income is below $13 million, that means you're going to be considered a small business. Retail services are below $8 million and manufacturing less than 250 employees. There we have the manufacturing, they look at employees versus the revenues. And construction, as you will see, is below $14 million. The state of Illinois also has a couple of certification programs. Number one, the Business Enterprise Program, and this is for females, minorities, and persons with disabilities. Now, the BEP agency is located in Chicago, and basically it's under Central Management Services umbrella. So if you are a minority-owned business, and I didn't go over the minority categories, but I do want to touch on that, and this is the same as it would be for the federal government. The designated 5 minority groups are Hispanic American, Black American, Native American Indian, Subcontinental Asian American, and Pacific Asian American. So those are the 5 categories of minority businesses. And
do you want to repeat those, Mary?
Yes, it would be Hispanic American, Black American, Native American Indian, Subcontinental Asian Americans, or Pacific Asian Americans. So those are the 5 designated categories, and those are also the categories that the SBA has designated for minority-owned. And as I want to mention right here that if you have a minority or a female-owned business or persons with disability or a veteran-owned business, that majority owner has to own at least 51% or more. So let me be very clear about that. If you want to say that you are a minority-owned business, let's say you're Hispanic American, you would have to own at least 51% of the business, and you would also have to control and manage the business on a day-by-day basis and make the future life and death decisions for the company. So that's very important. It's more than just the ownership. You need to also control and manage the business on a day-by-day basis.
That's an important point to remember.
It is. It's very critical. It's very critical. The state of Illinois, within the last few years, has also created a veteran-owned business program. And this application will also be sent up to Chicago to the Business Enterprise Program, and they will be reviewing those veteran-owned business applications. So that's just a few words about the state certifications. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Illinois Procurement Technical Assistance Centers. We actually are part of an association of PTACs, and I'd like to give you the website. This website will also contain the 9 PTAC centers that we have here in Illinois, and that website is aptac-us.org. So it's aptac-us.org. So that is our National Association website. The PTACs, Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, were started back in 1985, believe it or not. Today, presently, we have a grant that is funded in joint cooperation between the Department of Defense and the Defense Logistics Agency. Also, along with our federal sponsorship, the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity of Illinois provides a third of the funding. And then all of our centers here in Illinois have individual local host institutions. My local host institution happens to be Western Illinois University. So as I said, currently we have 9 centers here all throughout the state of Illinois. And I'm happy to announce that our services are at no cost to you. We call this a prepaid program basically because it's your tax dollars paying for this program. So it's the only time in my life that I'm going to say you can use me. So please take in consideration if you think that selling to the government may be a viable market for you and you're very interested, I would highly, strongly recommend using a PTAC. We do one-on-one counseling sessions. We oftentimes hold training sessions, workshops that you're invited to, and we will provide research for you on selling to federal, state, local governments. We have several different databases. If you would ask, okay, I sell chairs. I want to know what agency sells the most number of chairs. I can do a search for you, and it would come up with the agencies that buy the most chairs. So that's, getting rid of the shotgun approach, making it more dedicated, more focused. And also I want to mention that anything sold to the government is public knowledge. So it's just a matter of retrieving that information for you so you can see the price of a product that was just sold, so you can have an educated guess or an educated amount to bid on that opportunity.
So Mary, if we had a question from the audience earlier from Katina, and she said that she's starting a business in the beauty field, so she doesn't necessarily need this information, but if the Department of Corrections maybe buys beauty products for the residents.
Very true.
Or if the universities buy,
it could be. Or if she's located near Scott Air Force Base or Rock Island Arsenal, and maybe they might need a beautician. It's hard to tell. I have seen opportunities for everything from a rabbi to a church organist to playground equipment. And you think about it, the bases like Scott Air Force Base, they have schools on the bases. They have, it's kind of like a little city within the confine of that base. So some of the opportunities, if you stop and think about it, it makes sense. But, typically you probably wouldn't think of it, but it's very possible that they could use, like you said, Dee, they could use some health and beauty products.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, the other question that I have is, before somebody goes through the process of going to do all of this registration stuff, would you be able to tell them, yes, they might buy your product before they actually take all the steps to complete the registration?
Yes, we could sit down and we could talk with you about whether this made sense for you and your business. It may be one thing that your products are ready, but if you're not the type of person that wants to do paperwork or will do paperwork, I mean, there are those people that just, they're not suited for doing, the paperwork. And it could be a possibility that if they wanted to hire somebody, or if they had a spouse that was willing to do the paperwork, maybe that would work out too. But we would sit down with that person and we would help them decide. It's in the end, it's going to be their decision, but we can help you make that educated decision. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes, and one other thing that I wanted to mention about PTACs, here in Illinois, if you're an Illinois-based business, we provide to you a customized business bid match. We'll sit down with the company and we'll come up with a profile that basically gives us the description of what you're selling. Are you selling products or services? We'll come up with a profile, and we use a company in California that searches up to 400 different electronic bulletin boards, and those opportunities can be emailed directly to you. And if those opportunities meet your expectations or what you think you're looking for, you can reply back to it. We'll help you do the first several bids. It's always really scary, working on that first one, just not knowing what it's all about and how you should start the whole process. We can sit down and we can work with you on that too.
Amazing.
So,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Yes, and also within, Dee, I don't know if you touched on any of this within your other sessions, but within the Illinois Small Business Development Center network, we have small business development centers that can help a person that wants to start a business. Let's say, they wanted to start up a beauty salon. The SBDC would sit down and work with them and tell them, okay, this is what you need to do if you want to incorporate or if you want to become an LLC. They'll go through all of the steps for you. Or if you're expanding a business, the SBDCs can help you with that too. Within our network, we have international trade centers, NAFTA opportunity centers. If you're thinking about doing some importing, exporting, that can be very scary if you're not used to that sector. So we've got trade centers, NAFTA centers around the state. My small business incubators, basically, my office is in a small business incubator. It's not all communities have them, but it can be a very good deal for the small business just starting out. In the state of Illinois, we also have Illinois Manufacturing Excellence Centers. If you're a manufacturer, you might want to turn your attention to some of the IMEC folks. They may be able to help you maybe streamline your facility. If you want to delve into lean manufacturing, they can help with that. And last but not least are the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, or PTACs. So that's a rundown of all of the network partners that are here to help you out. So at this point in time, are there any questions?
If you have a question that we didn't already answer for you, you can add that to the Q&A and we'll get those answered for you very quickly. We would like to thank Mary Turner of the Illinois PTAC of Central Illinois. Here's her contact information. So if you did not already download the handout, it is in the lower left-hand corner. We do have some links in our closing pods that we want to share with you. So while you're thinking of any questions, you can continue to ask those. But while you're thinking, you may want to take a look at all of these links that we have here so that you can access all of the links right now that Mary was talking about during the presentation. They're all here, including a few additional ones for our Illinois WorkNet Start a Business, find an SBDC office near you, find a SCORE chapter near you, because that's always a great resource
Right.
as well.
Right.
Locate a business service team, which are the Illinois WorkNet Center representatives that help small businesses and businesses in the area, as well as all of these other links that we have here. So if you have not already downloaded the handout, please do that. We do have a question that I saw that just came in. It says, is there another webinar that I can watch that will cover small business in the beauty field? Not specifically in the beauty field, Katina, but we do have how to start your business. So that is a recording that we do have on our YouTube channel, and in a news item on Illinois WorkNet you can find those items. Any business is transferable. The same tools and tips apply to almost any business that you're starting out. So you want to make sure that you talk to somebody in an SBDC or find a SCORE mentor or talk with a local business services team representative to help you find those particular resources. And next week we are going to have a webinar on small business resources that you may want to participate in as well. Mary, do you happen to have any suggestions for Katina?
If she is located, Katina, do we know, where is Katina located? Do we know?
You can type that in for us. In Illinois, okay.
Oh, okay. Well, we have 9 different centers. So if you're in the southern part of Illinois, more than likely it would either be the John A. Logan PTAC or myself that would be helping you. Now, I help businesses in the Quincy area, Springfield, and also Champaign. But we also have a PTAC located in Peoria, in Rock Island. We have a PTAC in Rockford, and then we have the Norbic PTAC, which is in Chicago, the Women's Business Development Center PTAC, which is in Chicago. We also have the College of DuPage, which is near Naperville, Isles area. So those are the PTACs that we have around the state. And I would just highly suggest that you either sit down in front of a PTAC or give a PTAC a call and just discuss the opportunities. You know, with the beauty products, it might not be a huge product avenue to get into, but here again, whenever I counsel with clients, you know, you really shouldn't put all of your eggs in one basket anyway. So, you know, look at the government sales as, you know, this is an extra revenue income that can help me pay my lights, or maybe I want to take a vacation, and the extra revenue that I bring in from the government sales can help with that. So yeah, it may be that there's a little piece of the pie out there for all of you.
All right. We have another question. Do you have one for women in the Elgin area? The Elgin area does have an SBDC office.
And that wouldn't that be close to Naperville?
We're close to Naperville, or you can ride the train down to Chicago to the Women's Business Center in Chicago.
Okay.
Depending on what the transportation opportunity is for this for Nadia. So, but you could go to COD in Naperville, or you could go to the Women's Business Center in Chicago.
Oh, one other one I forgot was the Hispanic Chamber in Chicago, downtown Chicago. The Illinois Hispanic Chamber has a PTAC. I almost forgot that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so very much, Mary, for your knowledge and expertise today. We really appreciate the time that you spent helping us put this all together today. We do have, and Josh is giving you some applause.
Oh, good. Thank you.
At the top, the little man at the top of the screen, you can applaud or laugh or anything. So that's one of the things that you can do.
Thank you.
We do have a business resource webinar coming up next week on the 2nd at 2 p.m. And at 3 o'clock, we have an Advantage Illinois webinar, which is another really cool tool that Illinois has that you might be able to take advantage of. You are always welcome to watch all of our recordings and on our YouTube channel or through Illinois WorkNet itself, and always check Eventbrite to register for upcoming webinars. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today, Mary for being our guest presenter,